Dear Father, thank you for this time we can spend looking forward to the lesson for next week. We hope that as we open the mission perspective of Christ's ministry when he was on earth, that we will be able to glean gems of truth that will make us more effective missionaries, people and witnesses for you, that we can see a lot more non-believers, skeptics coming to the fold, putting their faith in Jesus, and we can have the delight and joy of having an extended and expanded family, not for our sake, but only for your glory. Again, give us teachable minds, responsive hearts, and obedient hands and feet. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Right, so we go to missions, and how natural should we think of missions when it comes to Luke? Right? When Luke wrote the gospel, let me review, if you can remember the study of the quarter so far. What was the main audience? Who was the main audience of Luke when he wrote the gospel? What kind of nationality? The Gentiles, the Greeks, okay, particularly the Romans. So you would think, because Luke was writing during the time of Acts, the early church, it was writing to Gentiles as opposed to Jews, these are non-Jews, that he has a very missional approach. Is that, is that understandable? And the fact that he's reaching out to non-Jews. When we say non-Jews, these are people outside the chosen people of God in the Old Testament. So they have no knowledge of Yahweh, they have no knowledge of the truth and revelation of God. And the fact that Luke is addressing the Greeks in his gospel means that he was very intentional in doing mission work, reaching out to the Greeks through the gospel. And that's why whenever you read Luke, there's a lot of references to the Gentiles. We already said that in Luke you will see the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? Why is it called the Good Samaritan? Because there were two other men who looked at the person in trouble. One was a Pharisee, the other was a priest. Both of them were Jews. Who was the hero in the story? The Gentile was the hero in the story. Okay? So the study for this coming weekend, for this coming lesson, is based on Luke 15, which I should have written on the board. It's based on Luke 15, and there's one of the most popular parables in the scriptures, especially the parable of the prodigal son. But these are, you talk about the lost coin, the lost sheep, and the lost son. Actually, how many sons were lost? There were two sons who were lost. Okay, so we go there in a little while. We have a clueless person, okay, who doesn't know that he is even lost. The coin did not know that he was lost. Okay, we have a directionless person who knows that he is lost, but he has no way to go back. There's no direction for him to follow. He doesn't know how to go back home. And we got a shameless person who wanted his father dead so he can get his inheritance. In the face of God, he dared defy God and run away from God. And this guy comes back. Okay, of course, that's probably the worst. We'll go back in a little while. And then we have a joyless person, somebody who remains inside the church, who remains inside the home, but everything is a drag. He forces himself to do stuff, so he follows the regulations and the laws in the home, not because he delights to, because he's joyful, but because he's forcing himself. So that's why that's what we call the joyless type of people. And we'll go there in a little while. I'll break down the lesson. But meanwhile, I just like to touch on missions. There is one person you would like to Google and go to YouTube. And if you want to, this I think is one of the most revolutionary approaches to missions. His name is Gary Comer. Okay, here's the name. I'll highlight it and I'll make it red so you can see. So Google his name. Comer. Yeah, he has a doctorate in church growth, so he knows how to establish churches, follow up churches. But he said, I learned a lot of lessons, and he said there's got to be a different way for us to do missions. for him to say everything in the church must be missional. When we say it must be missional, doesn't mean you just study the Sabbath school or listen to the second service because it's a worship service. No, every aspect of the church is it must be missional. There must be a mission component of every, which we will cover in a little while. Okay, so there are 4 concentric circles, and I wasn't able to draw that, but he says there are 4 stages in the life of a believer, of a Christian. There is stage 1, which is step in. When you say step in, you invite the person into the kingdom. As soon as he steps into the kingdom, he should stop stepping on. When you say step on, he said start getting involved. You don't go into the church just to sit there and be a spectator. You must be able to find involvement and participation, whether it's being part of a small group, being a deacon, or helping out in whatever you can do in the church. So that's stepping on. After you step on, you must learn to step up. In other words, you must improve your Christian life. You must have a devotional life. Let me read that to you, and I hope we can spend time here one of these days. You must have a, this is what it's saying. Let me read it to you, okay? You must learn a pattern of contextual method for studying the Bible. So you just don't go every day and thinking out of your mind about spiritual thoughts. You must learn how to have an effective devotional life. A pattern of contextual reading of the scriptures. You must grow in prayer. That's the second part. You must be taught how to pray. Okay? You must know how to identify your sins. Because only when you identify your sins can you confess them and ask God to help you overcome them. You must become part of a small group. Okay, that's part of being stepping up, and I'm glad that that's happening right now in our church, because particularly with the men's ministry. And then you must learn how to practice showing love to people inside and outside the church. We got to find missional events that will allow us to share the love of Jesus both within and without the church. And then 6, you must be equipped in sharing the message of Christ. So that's stepping on. So after you get invited, you step on in terms of involvement, you step up in terms of Christian growth, and then you step out. You'll be inspired. So this is what he's trying to say. And there is what he calls a way of evangelism, which is relational. Okay? We'll go there in a little while. Okay. When we say relational, I was just listening to Dwight Nelson. Cash was playing it from his phone. There was a big issue today. What comes first? Belonging or believing?
Of course, believing.
Okay, so in the early church, if you look at the New Testament, before you can be part of the church, you must first believe, right? So believing comes first before you belong. That has changed today. That's not the approach anymore. How do we do church today? Friendship evangelism. What do? You make them belong first, and then after they belong, then they will believe. I know.
It looks like it's not right.
Okay, gosh, now he's reacting. Is it right or is it wrong?
I don't think so.
It's right in one sense. We all belong to one family, the human family.
All right, okay. Now let's skip over that again. Let's talk about in terms of mission. What comes first, believing or belonging? Is it right to approach outreach by just being friendly? Oh, he must be part of the group, and then when he becomes part of the group, then he can believe. Or is that putting the cart before the horse?
You cannot belong if you're not believing.
But a lot of churches now, the approach that they take is make them feel wanted first. You know, like that's why they say set up an atmosphere in the church that's what seeker friendly. You've heard that term, right? So seeker friendly, make it friendly so they can hang out, and once they feel that they belong, they're welcome, then you can start talking to them and they will believe. Is that the right approach?
Because they are some people.
That's what you call
how come they are hanging out with those non-believers.
Right? There's anything wrong with that. If you don't hang out with non-believers, you will not engage in missions. Okay? I think the problem is we're looking at extremes. Okay? We need them both. And I think that's the answer. And Gary Comer answers that very nicely. Okay? I'd like to summarize this. I'm hoping I get this right. This is what he calls the relational evangelism process. So when you talk about evangelism, there are several approaches. Okay, let me just read it for you because I had no room in the board. Our typical approach to evangelism is proclamation, right? So as soon as you proclaim, you ask somebody to make a decision during the proclamation. He's saying the culture is different today. You cannot just do proclamation right now and people just decide right there. It was good for the culture before. What you do today is establish relationships first. Are you following? And after you've established the relationships, you will then begin conversations. Try to lead them into spiritual conversations. And it can be a process. While you're doing your spiritual conversations, you're leading the person into making decisions. So it's not a one-time proclamation and then get the decision. Rather, establishing a relationship, and after you establish the relationship, you start talking about conversations about God, and then eventually, usher the person into the gospel. That's the way it works today. And I don't think it is an issue of whether it should be belonging before believing or believing before belonging. The example that he gives is very, very poignant. He said, one day, this one lady at work wanted to witness for Jesus. Then she approaches her office mate and said, how are you doing? It looks like you have something in your mind. Yeah, well, there's just some stuff at home. Well, maybe you should try God. I said, you should try God. This is a very, very basic proclamation approach. Try God. You have the gospel, sinner's prayer. You've heard about that. Hey, maybe you should try God. And then you draw the picture. This man, there's a deep recipe. This God, there's a bridge. Yeah, simple things like that. But the quick answer of this lady was, in our family, we really don't talk about God. It shuts her down. So what do you do after that?
Why not?
What do you mean, why not?
If they are asking me like that, why not? Then I'll ask them, why not?
Okay, I told you already. But what part of we don't talk about it didn't you understand?
Yeah, why not? You give me a reason.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What part of the fact that we're not interested in God don't you understand? Why are you still engaging me in a conversation? You're creating a barrier. That's what we're trying to say. And in a proclamation style, if somebody does not respond, that's it. Now, in a relational style, it's different. He said, that's the way you do it is you let it go. Okay? You let it go for the day. Then come the following Monday after the weekend. Hey, how was your weekend? Everything's okay? I was wondering about our conversation last week. Why is it that your family, why don't they take interest in God? Did you have a worse... You know what you're trying to do? You're resurrecting where you left off. You do not give up on the guy. You keep on establishing that relationship, and you keep on talking and making conversations until finally the lady will come to you, yes, because my sister died when she was very young. Now you understand why she talks like that, because she is very bitter about what God has done to the family. Now you open up. You start start opening, addressing the hurt of this person. You become a true friend to this lady. And then while you do your conversations, you prove to her that Jesus is the consolation for such things like those. And for you to understand that while the conversation continues, one day she decides to commit to Jesus Christ. That is a relational evangelistic process. Okay? So it is not an issue of, do you want them to belong in order to be baptized? Always that's our thinking of evangelism. No. You are establishing a relationship. You are establishing a bridge. You want to connect with the person first. And then very slowly tell the person what a difference Jesus will make in his life or her life. And the moment you do that, eventually you will ask them to decide for Jesus Christ. That's a relational approach. So you connect relationally, you first build. Okay? Then after you build the relationship, obviously the next question would be, what benefit will it be for me to put God into my life? Okay? How could Christ help in your situation? And the situation varies. There are several ways you can reach out to a person. And then that's where Cassie said, why not? You know, really, you don't have to ask the question, but you ask it in the back of your mind. Why is this guy skeptical? Why is he antagonistic towards God? Why doesn't she show any interest at all in the spiritual things? So you try to figure out what the barrier is. So this is the first relational approach. And as soon as you go into this, let me write that down. So you got relationships. No more. Yeah, there. Let's go to another color. So you have the relationships. After you have relationships, what do? You have conversations. And after conversations, what do? You try to lead them to decisions. Okay? So that's the first part. You build the benefit and the barriers. Okay, right there. Conversation or exploration. You do that here. This is the relational process. After you do the relational process, what then happens? The person comes to believe. And as soon as the person starts believing, then he or she starts belonging to a church. Then after she belongs to a church, then she becomes trained as a disciple. And if you follow this process, in whatever process you do, it becomes very missional in its approach. How do we relate this to Jesus Christ? Very simple. One of the best approaches that Jesus demonstrated in the gospel is his conversation with the Samaritan woman. Remember? At the well. Did Jesus just proclaim, I am the Messiah? No, he did not start. How did Jesus start? Let's review the process. Oh yeah. Give me some water to drink. What did he do?
Establish that relationship.
He reached out, okay? Because you know, why are you talking to me? You're a man, and more than that, you're a Jew. Why in the world are you talking to me? There's no way. In our culture, that's not allowed. That's a taboo. But what did he do? He started the conversation. Okay? And then after that, Jesus started saying, if you only know who you're talking to, I'll give you living water, and you'll never thirst anymore. And then the lady goes, of course takes him literally, you don't have any bucket. You don't have any pail. How can you draw water? But what is Jesus trying to do? From the very common things in life, he drives the conversation into a spiritual conversation. Right? And then eventually, what happens? Then eventually he discloses, hey, I am he who can give you water and you will never thirst anymore. Really, I am the only one. And then the decision came. What happened? As soon as the Samaritan woman decided to believe in Jesus as the Messiah, started belonging to his disciples, and what happened to the entire people in Samaria? A lot of people believe in Jesus Christ because of what the woman told them. Okay? They went to Jesus Christ.
Because Jesus has a magic touch.
Approach.
Okay, really, the world is miraculous. But do you realize that Jesus did not only have a miraculous touch, Jesus was forming disciples of his life. Spent 3.5 years to train his disciples. Not only the 12, he trained about 70 until they became 120 in the upper room. after he ascended to heaven.
He has charisma.
Yeah, and then Jesus did not do that just for the sake of doing it. He provided a model for us to follow. And basically what Gary Commer's approach is, this is what we want to do. We must change the way we approach evangelism. It is not the issue between belonging and believing. The issue is, when you do evangelism today, be relational. That's what I approach with Pastor Mark and Pastor David in our church. They emphasize relationship. So establish relationship. That's why small groups come into play. And then once you establish a relationship, you can have conversations. And in the conversations, you can bring in them to the spiritual. And then so basically, you can remember relational evangelism, the REP, relational evangelism process. You torch, the trail, and the traction. What's the meaning? The torch. Torch basically is a conversation. Give them some light. What is the trail? Allow them to explore what you're trying to tell them. Okay? And as soon as there is an exploration, what is traction? The moment you have traction, have you driven a car without traction? Yes, driving on ice, right? You don't want to drive a car without traction. But when you say in the vernacular, pag kumakagat na, no? When the tire hits the road and the tire starts biting the road, then you can really step on the gas and you start moving. There's movement here. So basically, start with the conversation, exploration, and decision, or conversation in this particular case. The torch, the trail, and the traction. Okay. Now, how do you process this? There are several steps, okay? When a person is open to what you're saying, there's an interest. And since the person is interested, he needs help by asking, okay? When the person is able to, okay, the hang-up is reason. He will ask you reasons for what you're saying, and then you must provide the answers. That's why when somebody, a skeptic who's an evolutionist or a humanistic person comes to you, you must be ready to give him an answer, right? And then when the person is now wanting to, he's motivated, you must make an appeal. When you say make an appeal, would you like to repent now of your sins, not that Jesus is willing to take you, okay? And then eventually he will choose to, it's a response, and it's an application. Wasn't able to draw this. Think of this as concentric circles, okay? When I say concentric circles, it will look like this. You am open to, able to, want to, and choose to. Used to be, a lot of people just choose to, okay? And open to goes in the concentric circle. In other words, you understand things in biblical categories. When I say we understand things in biblical categories, but 200 years ago, when you want to understand a concept, you give an example of the Bible. Okay? Do you think of Adam? You think of David? You think of Abraham? People understood who these people are. Today, they do not understand that. Okay? So what do? You start with secular categories and then start explaining it in religious stories. So, right now, there's a lot more people who are open to. They do not choose to. You cannot assume that you need God. You must decide for God. And because there's a lot more people who belongs to this open to, what you need to do is do a relational evangelism process, okay, of the torch, the trail, and the traction. And when that happens, you'll be able to be more effective in evangelism. What's the effect of this? When it is a proclamation model, it leads to an immediate response, right? The problem with an immediate response, normally it doesn't last.
That's what's happening in
Yes.
evangelism in the building.
Yes, that's why Gary Commerce, after pursuing my doctoral degree in church growth and understanding outreach, said there's something wrong with what we're doing. This is not an Adventist. I'm not talking within the Adventist. This is basically Christian evangelical. And he said the reason why we do that is our approach is just aimed at proclamation, get a response, that's it. But when you build a relationship, he said when you build a relationship that leads to a dialogue, the dialogue continues. And it becomes very natural for the person that you contacted to become part of a small group, and it continues and it's long-lasting. Yeah.
So the way they do the
Yes.
what they do in the Philippines.
And normally in third world countries, that's the approach. We're not saying it's bad. They're saying it has worked for the longest time, but looks like our generation needs a different approach.
Well, some
Okay.
people becomes it lasts, and some people it doesn't last.
Well, and that's what he's trying to explain. It doesn't last if the approach is, hey, you're a sinner. You need Jesus Christ. Accept Jesus Christ now. You're saved. Pray the prayer, the sinner's prayer, and you're done. It doesn't last because you have not given the person tools in order for him to grow. But if you start a conversation, start a relationship, the relationship continues. And the same guy who asked you about Jesus and solution to his problems will still ask you tomorrow, hey, what can we talk to God about? How can we talk to God about my problems right now? You sit down, and that's what he's saying. That's why we have to revolutionize the way we think evangelism. That's what Gary Homer is saying. If we think relational evangelism, that will persist in dialogue and interaction with other people, then decisions will last longer. Okay, that's what they're saying. Missional potential is very high, and the hit and miss. Of course, there's a lot more. It takes a lot longer to have a relational approach to evangelism, but the fact that it lasts longer only says that it will not only last longer during the decision process, it will even last longer while the person is already a Christian. All right? Okay, now let's look at the circles that I drew here. There are three calls basically extended to people. When we say we are called to God, we become disciples, right? When we are called to each other, we talk of a family, become a family of God, okay? And when we are called to missions, we become missionaries. So there are three angles of the Christian life. You are first a disciple of God, and after becoming a disciple of God, you must remember that you have a family. I always talk to people about this, and I raised this up. I already raised it in church. I raised it in Chicago Fil-Am this morning. With most of the services being live streamed, you can practically watch our service using a cell phone while you're driving or using an iPad. Anywhere you are, you can lie down and take a nap at home, and you're going to watch the service. Why do you need to go to church? Well, not only for fellowship. You must have what they call, and don't forget this term, I hope you apply this, without what we call a body life. What is a body life? You must have a life in the body. You are part of the body of Jesus Christ, and you have to fulfill a part of the body of Jesus Christ. If you don't become part of the body, you will not grow. The body life means, hey, I am now a member of this fellowship. What gifts did the Holy Spirit give me that I can use to contribute to the growth and edification of my congregation as a family? Okay? It's almost like having somebody in your family who stays at home, he eats at home, he gets all the benefits of the home and does nothing in the home. You know what I'm trying to say? What do you call those people? In our terms, we call them freeloaders, right? You don't want to be a freeloader. You go to the church, you become a freeloader. Those are the people who don't want to go to church. They want to stay home. They're just freeloaders in the kingdom. Jesus said when you become part of the church, you become part of the family. And when Jesus said, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of this, let's repeat that. Okay, I hope you understand the context. Inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of this, my brethren. Who is the least?
His brethren.
His brethren. The least of my brethren, the least of God's family. If somebody in God's family is in trouble, you must be the first one to help that person. That doesn't mean we should not help the poor and the homeless. But that's what the text is saying. When you become a family, you must help the family of God. That's part of the body life because that's the bride of Jesus Christ.
But sometimes we do degrade him. That's what's wrong with the church.
What? We do what?
Degrade him.
Oh, we degrade them, but that's not. You're not contributing to the body life because if you degrade yourself, you actually destroy the body, right? That's what Paul is saying. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't like your nose, for instance, you keep on bad-mouthing your nose. What will happen to you if you get rid of your nose? You'll be able to breathe. You're gonna die. This Paul is trying to say you got different parts of the body, and every part of the body has a function. Okay, that's what Paul is trying to say. But be part of the body life. And then aside from reaching in as disciples, you then must go out in order to preach the gospel. You must be missionaries. The church is in the process of thinking of a mission trip. A mission trip in the next 2 years. And if you guys are planning to involve, then plan for the next 2 years so you can be involved in the first church-wide mission trip that we will do. But the mission trip will mean nothing unless we have learned what it means to be a family. Are you following? You know why it's important? Because we will create another family when we go out to missions. And the sense of family and belongingness doesn't really mean a whole lot if you have not been a disciple. And a disciple must first believe in what he's doing. You must have passion. You must understand and be passionate and be motivated with the gospel yourself. And once you've done it, you be a disciple, you become part of the family member, and you become a missionary. Okay, so that's the background of a new approach to missions. And that's the whole issue of what we'll be talking about right now, what Jesus modeled in terms of missions. Okay, any questions?
How about what does Mr. White say about?
Well, Ellen White basically says the Christ method alone will work. You know, he mingled with men, and that's what she's basically advocating a relational evangelism process. You might, when you look for Gary Comer, you might want to look for this specifically. It's called missional engagement series.
That's in the website.
Yeah, that's in the website. This is a collection of about 4 books. I would suggest this to Pastor Mark and Pastor David. There is a booklet. There's a student guide and leader's guide for this. Maybe if the men's ministry can start something, this will be an excellent session. Because this will give you skills as to how to conduct conversations with other people, how to maintain those conversations, how to be sensitive. Right here, will develop you, and then eventually, how to influence people. So, the whole issue here, and before I forget this, it's not so much, he says, it's not eloquence. Okay? As much as influence. You get it? Big difference. You might be very eloquent in what you say, and from our standpoint, you might know the doctrines, you can defend all the doctrines, but you're not influencing the person listening to you. It's useless. Okay? So the whole idea of Gary Comer's series is to teach you how to be influential. To teach you how to be influential for Christ and for God. Not just to proclaim Christ, but influence people for God. What does influence imply? When you influence somebody, it implies action on somebody else, right? Proclamation is normally one way. Influence is 2 ways. Somebody's the influencer, the other is the one being influenced. And the one being influenced is moving towards one direction. So the whole idea of this missional engagement series is not just proclamational or eloquence, it is influential, or work on your skills to be a big influence to other people towards Jesus Christ. Right? It's very, actually, Matthew Belonio was here. Matthew is the son of Pastor Dan Belonio, who was here over the weekend. And he said, Pastor Bing, will you have time to spare so we can talk, because I'm doing some schoolwork, classwork in Andrews. And I said, well, yeah, if we meet, we can talk. But meanwhile, he said, search out Gary Comer. As soon as you search out Gary Comer, look into his mission and engagement series. This will revolutionize your pastoral work. Okay? All right? So, I can never overemphasize this. I hope our church moves towards this direction, and it will be very, very, that way we don't isolate just worship here, and we don't isolate just outreach here, and study over here. It becomes missional all in all. The bottom line, though, is at the center of all of this is the gospel. What is the purpose of all of this? We will go back to the purpose It is to glorify God. Okay? How do you glorify God? You glorify God by being a disciple, being a member of the family, by doing missions. All of these activities is so that no man can boast, and the glory will be given back to God. Okay? Are we okay with this? Hopefully this is enough background. You don't have to discuss this in your class. Just put this in the back of your minds when you do the lesson study. Make sure you gather concepts from here before you even continue. Because if I now ask you the question, what's valid? Belonging before believing or believing before belonging? That is a very simplistic question. Now, if you understand it in this light, there is no disagreement in the two. Okay? You need belongingness, you need believing, but you got to put it in the right sequence, in the right context, and when you're able to do that, you will be an effective mission outreach person within the kingdom of God. Okay? So let's go into the study of the three parables, one of the most popular parables in the Bible. The first is the parable of the lost. Okay, I rearranged it. Okay, the first parable is the lost sheep here. So what's the parable about the lost coin? A lot of people are saying more than likely the lost coin is a denarius. What is a denarius? A denarius is a day's wage. In other words, the value of the coin that was lost was equivalent to 1 day's earning. And that's a lot of money during the time of Christ. Okay? Another commentator says, normally Jewish women had a ring around their head composed of several coins, silver coins, okay? And somehow one of those silver coins fell, and it's gone. They're looking. So the story says the woman finds the coin, and what happens after she finds the coin? Celebrates, and there's joy. Okay.
It was a rare coin.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a valuable coin also, okay? Okay, remember though, this theme of rejoicing and celebration you will find in all three parables. Why? Because what is the context of the parable? Why did Jesus tell this parable? Huh? Look at the first part.
Finding the sinner.
Okay, somebody read verses 1 to 3.
What?
Luke 15, 1 to 3.
1 to 3, is that?
15, 1 to
Then
3.
all the tax collectors and the sinners drew near to him to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes complained, saying, This man receives sinners and eats with them. So he spoke this parable to them, saying,
Wow. So here comes Luke's approach. Luke's perspective now comes out very explicitly here. What is he telling about? He's telling about the prejudice and the bias of the Pharisees towards tax collectors. Okay? And they're very biased towards Gentiles and those people who are not part of the group or the church. So look, he dines with sinners. He has parties with tax collectors. They were accusing Jesus as somebody who associates with sinners. And what he's basically saying, he's associating with garbage, so he's garbage as well. That's what they're trying to say. That's why they never respected Jesus Christ. They wanted to get rid of him. They never understood what he was trying to do. So just as normally Jesus will do, he did not just castigate them, he told the story. In the context of the Pharisees' bias and prejudice, this story is told. The first story that's told is about the missing coin. Yeah, this is actually the missing. What's the characteristic of the missing coin? He doesn't know that it's lost. And because he doesn't know it's lost, he's clueless. He doesn't even know that it needs to be found. Are there people like those? Oh yes, left and right. Particularly in the United States today, a lot of people don't even know who Jesus and who God is. And the only time you hear Jesus from their mouth is when they're cursing. Right?
This country is
Freedom
they
change.
build because of religion.
Yes, but now they're taking God out of the government. They're in fact they're said it's very disconcerting. I feel uncomfortable when I read the phrase "in God we trust." Okay, yeah, I can go on, but our culture is becoming more secularized. They're saying we're becoming like the European countries, which is a post-Christian era in most of the Christian countries in Europe. Okay, but basically, the fact that the culture is so far-fetched from God, a lot of people don't even know that they need God. It's really sad. I'll give you an example. How many people are admitted in codependency programs today? People go into drugs, they go into alcohol, and have no concept who God is. They get STD, they go into immoral kinds of lives and waste their lives. They spend and rot in prisons. Why? Because they don't know that they're lost and they don't know that they need to be found. So, this is the story of the clueless. Question: does God reach out to the clueless? He does. Have you had an experience of reaching out to our clueless? I always like this example. You know, how come it's always in New York and it's winter time? Okay, the stories that a lot of the evangelists say. Supposedly, one winter time in New York, this guy was riding in a limo. He's a very wealthy businessman, and he found a boy walking in the streets of New York barefooted on a winter day, snowy day. So you know what the men did? The men bought the boy some boots, bought the boy some clothes and a coat. Okay, well, this is not the policeman. This is a rich businessman. The police will only buy you boots. Okay. So this guy, a complete wardrobe, and fed the boy. He just treated the boy to food, you know, to a nice meal, warm cooked meal. Gave the boy boots, gave him clothes and a coat. And then after the meal, the man said bye and went into the limo. And before he could enter the limo, the boy goes and says, "Mister, excuse me. Are you God?" You got it? Some people can be clueless, have no exposure to God, but they might see a glimpse of God in us. That's missional again.
I wish missional again.
Yeah. I have an office mate who's very intelligent, and you know, because he's very intelligent, a lot of people consider him unfriendly because intelligent. When he talks to you, a lot of times he doesn't realize that he talks down on you because he's very, very smart. Then one day we started talking about stuff, about transitions into technology, and they said, "What will you do?" You know, he said, "Jack, what will you do? Mario, what will you do? Oh, what will you do, Bing?" And then this smart guy blurted out, "Oh, Bing is cool. He's very calm and collected." I didn't realize he overheard our conversations about me taking mission trips to the Philippines, and I talked to God about stuff in our conversations. Not to him, but to my other friends. And because he heard that, somehow he's got that in the back of his mind. Somehow Bing fears God. Okay, he's got a connection there. Because he's got a connection there, you know, he doesn't get flustered when there's a big problem at work. You know, he's collected because he has got somebody to go to. What am I trying to say? Is it possible for you to make an influence to somebody who is clueless?
Of course.
When we go out to a bar, okay, there's a party, somebody's going out. Dude, happy hour, you know, last time we can say bye. This guy's leaving for grad school, or we're going to another company. So we go there. And of course, when you go to the bar, what do? Happy hour. Beer starts flowing, you know, wine starts flowing. But when we go there, people will say, give Bing some fruit juice, okay? Or some pop, because he doesn't drink. And then a friend of mine says, man, I'm going to cut my hand the day being cursed. I cut my finger when you do that. There are little things you can do without a direct confrontational or proclamational approach that can somehow influence the clueless. And I don't want to go far. Last night we didn't have a small Bible study group. You know why? We had to go to Hinsdale. They had what they call 747. Have you heard of the 747? These guys are in a 30-day fast in school to raise some money for those. So they're doing this. Daphne was there and the kids. We were there because John Gallagher invited us. Do you know John Gallagher? He plays the guitar during our praising once in a while. A tall American guy. You know when John first came to HAA, he had long hair, he had like earrings here. You're talking like, man, you don't want to come near this guy. Okay? The transformation that happened to the life of John during the last small group we had, the previous Friday, he attended and joined our small group. We were studying about Daniel. And then he goes, I'm so glad that you guys will join me in my church. Because that's, he joins us here, he joins over there, but I'm looking at John. He said, wow, when he first went to HAA, he was clueless. He had no clue at all. And then one day, Justin comes to me and tells me, Dad, how can I go to Bolingbrook today? I need to be in Hinsdale. Why? Because John's getting baptized. And John wants me to sing a song for him. So Justin skipped Bolingbrook, told his pastor, and we went there. Justin sang a song, the favorite song of John during the baptism. John, you're talking, that's joy, and that's delight, that's celebration. Because the clueless was found. All right? Now let's go to the second guy that's lost. There's a lost sheep. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness, go after? Why does the shepherd go after the sheep? Because unlike a cat, or unlike a dog, the sheep doesn't know the way home. He doesn't know how to come home. Does he know that he's lost? Yes, he knows that it's lost, but he has no wherewithal to go home.
Dumb animal, huh?
Yeah, they're saying that the sheep outside of the turkey, again, the turkey is the dumbest fowl, but the dumbest animal is the sheep. How you know how dumb a sheep is? They follow the lead of one sheep. Okay, there's the leader of the sheep. Everybody moves, okay? and if the leader of the sheep, of the flock of sheep, is at the end of the edge of the precipice, and he jumps, everybody jumps, and they die. That's yeah. And you should Google this. I don't know if it's available, but Ken Davis has a sermon, a very funny sermon on the sheep, and he said, what happened to the sheep? They used to live in a farming community, so they were taking care of herds. And there was a sheep, and the favorite sheep, he said, my sheep was so dumb, one day my dad goes, boo! And the sheep died. that's how dumb the sheep is, okay? Why? Because the sheep can get lost, and there's no way he can find his way back home. How many of you were last year?
Why is like that?
Well, there's just some dumb animals. You know, I can relate to this. If you were in the Mother's Day thing last Sunday, I told this story. I got lost when I was small. Yeah, you know, little boy wanted to play. Started moving around. I didn't realize I was moving away and away from our house. And finally I turned around, couldn't find my house anymore. There's a little boy. He started crying. And then the Boy Scout found me. He said, hey kid, you're lost. Where's your house? Oh, it's there. It's right by the coconut tree. And I look around, there were hundreds of coconut trees. You know, how can I find myself? And the bottom line is, I'm here today. He found me. All I'm trying to say is there are a lot of people in the world, they know that they need God, but they just don't know how to get to God.
That's right.
Oh boy, if God will only allow us to get to them. And tell them, hey, have no way, man. You know, you don't have to despair. You don't have to go to depression. Somebody really cares for you. And let me help you. And And some people in the world who are in that lot say, can I still be forgiven? Man, I'm so bad. I am a hopeless case. You know, forget it. There's no hope in... That's when the time you say, hey, dude, you can come back. Jesus is just waiting for you. Okay? That's the directionless. Now, there are some people who are shameless, like the prodigal son. And of course, he's the favorite parable of all the three. What's the story of the prodigal son? What's the law in the house? How much does the eldest receive?
Last
2/3. 2/3.
33 and
2/3 of the inheritance goes to the eldest. So, and the balance is divided up among the siblings. There are only 2 kids, the elder son and the younger son. So, he had 1/3 of the estate. That's still a whole lot of money. How shameless was this guy? Dad, don't have to wait for you to be dead. Give me my money now. It's a shameless as telling your dad, I want you dead. I really don't care about you. I'm more concerned about your money. Are there people like that today? They go to church just to exploit God and what they can get from Him. That's why when we talk about prosperity gospel, prosperity preachers will say, if you believe God, He will give you whatever you want. And do you realize in the Philippines there are evangelists that say, if you will only touch the TV set with your handkerchief right now, and then wipe your forehead with the handkerchief, you'll be healed. And if you will only send the 100 or 500, 1,000 pesos, okay, to this thing, you'll be okay. Shameless. There are some people who are just shameless, and they exploit God. Question. Does he know he's lost?
Yeah.
Who deliberately went lost? When did he decide? When did he find out that he was lost? When he was about to eat what the pigs were eating. The lowest position a Jewish boy can be in. Then what happened to him? I will rise up and go back to my father. So here is the case of somebody who knows he's lost, and he also knows how to come back. That's why Elder Maleshenko, when I was listening to him do an exposition in Luke 15, says, this is a classic case of people who have been exposed to God. These are, but have backslided since then. These are cases of backsliders in the church. Okay? I'll be very, very frank with you. A lot of these backsliders are most of our kids, right? I mean, you do everything for them to understand that God is the only thing that will make a difference. You don't see them around anymore. They don't take interest in religious things. Do they know their way back home? Yes, they do. So the only thing you can do is pray, so that somehow God will stir a longing in their hearts for them to come home, because they know their way home. Just a matter of them realizing that they need to be home. I don't want to stretch this, but I'll be preaching at the end of the month. I'll probably raise that up when I give the message before we leave for the Philippines. But you got to make your people understand. It's not the money that you make, it's not the position that you attain that really spells success in this world. How does Jesus say, what shall a man do if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Is that something that will really last? Those are the questions. When I ask it, is the shameless, and I can only thank God that God does something so that He calls them back and heals them. Number 4, a lot of people miss this because there's not a parable, not an explicit parable. There's no explicit parable about the eldest son. What was the problem with the eldest son? Was he lost?
He felt left out.
Oh, he was also clueless, okay? But more than being clueless, he was joyless. The problem is he's clueless inside the home. Just because he's physically inside the home, he thought he is not lost. It's possible to be lost inside the home. That's the difference. This guy is lost. Is there a mission within the church? Oh yes, there's a lot of mission in the church because a lot of people are lost within the church. What do you do?
Starting with the administrator.
Okay, now let's think about that. Okay. All right, so I know you, Mr. Cass will react now. Okay, now I'm not just talking about administration and all. Are there people lost inside the church? Okay, what is the number one reason for lostness inside the church?
This thing.
Well, okay, but yeah, fine. That's just a symptom.
Right.
Okay, yeah, the pride is also a symptom. So if you're saved by faith, it is righteousness by faith. What is the chief characteristic of people who are saved or lost inside the church? They're saved by, what's the opposite of faith? They're saved by their own achievements. They're saved by what they do. And to be lost inside the church, you can be the most religious and depend on what you're doing. You are lost within the church. Is there a big mission field within the church? You think the missions out there within the church? There's a lot of elder sons.
A lot of people don't
They
realize
think they're okay, but they're clueless that they're lost. And I don't have to repeat what George Knight said. You know, I had 3 degrees from an Adventist institution, and I promised God I'll be the first perfect Seventh-day Adventist. He became a vegan. You know, I started keeping the Sabbath, and then he even met. He met vegetarian more vicious than the devil, you know. And he talks about this, and he said, oh, and then what I did was when I pastored churches, I had people move towards perfection. You must be perfect, you must follow this. And after a while, he became very depressed. This is not working. I feel miserable. My church is miserable. I don't want to be a pastor anymore. So what does it do? What does it do? He turns in his credentials. He told his conference president, I can't do it anymore. This is a lie, and I don't want to lie anymore. I want to be true. I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want any of this. Not for me. For 6 years, didn't attend church. Didn't pray, didn't read the Bible. And with the goodness of God, he met his former professor in seminary in one of the convenience stores in Keene, Texas. And he was led back to Jesus. And what did he say? My Adventism got baptized. In other words, I became a Christian after being an Adventist for so many years and earning 3 academic degrees in the Adventist church. What was the problem with George Knight? He thought he could be perfect and depend on himself. You will be lost if you depend on yourself or anything else outside of Jesus Christ. Because the mission is centered in Jesus. The moment you realize that Jesus is there, there is room for celebration. What did the Father say? Look at the parable. Verse 31 and 32. Somebody read that. 15, 31, 32.
And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead, and is alive again, and was lost, and is found.
Oh, whoa. You see how exposing this is? You gotta understand what the elder son said prior to the comment from the father. Somebody, help us out here. Somebody say 28 to 30. Somebody read 28 to 30.
Probably that eldest son is dumb also.
Yeah, you read 28 to 30 first to see how dumb the son is.
But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might make merry with my friends.
Verse 30.
But as soon as this son of yours came, this has devoured your livelihood with harlots. You killed the fat calf.
How can you be more explicit? That's what did he say? He said, Come on! I've observed you for so many years. You've not even slaughtered a goat for me. And then once this son of yours, he didn't even call him his brother. Did you notice that?
Yep.
Maybe
Once
that's the reason why.
this, well, yeah.
Maybe this elder son they have different mothers.
Okay. Pardon me for laughing because that was really reading into the text. No,
It's implied that there was another mother.
no, that's not.
very
That's not even farming. I have read so many commentaries about this. That's the first time I heard about that. It's very dangerous for Benji to write about the commentary. All that this is trying to say is he disowned his brother. Actually, he did not disown his brother at the point where he left home. He just hated the guts of the brother anymore. Why? Because he has been doing stuff joylessly, not out of love, but out of obligation for his dad. It is an insult. So my brother has it easy. He goes, just whatever he wants to do.
It's really dumb, that story is really something else too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can also say that it's like the feud between Ismael and Isaac.
It's a parable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't read too much into the parable.
Don't go
You
beyond
will lose the value of the metaphor. You give an illustration, not to go to the minute details.
Just
But
a
basically
parable.
saying, but as soon as this son of yours, who's not knowing his brother, who has devoured your livelihood, he said, Dad, he devoured your livelihood. He devoured you. Nilamon ang iyong kayamanan. He devoured your livelihood. What? With harlots. He did not just devour it. He devoured your livelihood in immoral living. Shameful living. You killed the fatted calf for him. You know what the fatted calf is? I didn't realize. What's the tenderest beef of all? I know you guys are vegetarian. You know what the tenderest beef of all is? It's the Kobe beef. It's a Kobe beef of Japan. And it's nothing. You probably because I have a friend in the Philippines who sits in the Microsoft board for Asia. So he travels the world and into Microsoft development. And they go to Japan every so often, and they take him to the Plaza's restaurant with all the executives in Microsoft, and they serve Kobe beef. The Kobe beef is the softest, the tenderest. You know why? Aside from the tax,
they hang them.
the way they raise the calf, where they get the Kobe beef, the cows do not move.
And they hang them.
They sit still right there. Okay, the whole time before they get slaughtered. Okay, so there's no muscles, so it's very, very tender. Okay. In other words,
Just like
it
the
takes.
chicken here.
In other words, and I don't know how they do it in Palestine, but they fatten the calf. Why do they fatten the calf? For a celebration, for a party, right? There's one calf set aside just for a party. And what's the meaning of set aside? We don't understand it in our culture. But the way you understand it in our culture is a father knows that if he's a daughter, he has a daughter, one of these days the daughter is going to get married. So what does a father do? He sets aside the fatted calf. That fatted calf is a bank, okay? And he starts putting all the money in the bank just for the wedding of the daughter, okay? What this young kid is saying. Not a single cent for me! And now, when this brother of yours, this son of yours devoured your whole livelihood in harlots, in prostitutes, what do? You grab the entire bank account, you give it to him. What kind of dad are you? Wow, I think the parable of the elder brother is more pointed than the parable of the lost son. Because we really don't know whether the elder brother ever got saved or entered the house to celebrate, right? That was left hanging for us to finish. And I think Jesus had a purpose for that. And then that's where Ed comes in. But the father said, Son, you have been always with me. What else? And all that I have is yours. What else do you want? Everything that I have is at your disposal in my house. The only problem with you, you never delighted in what I have. You always serve me out of obligation. There's no joy with you. Okay, so here's my question. Are there people inside the church who are joyless?
Yes.
Is the Pope Catholic? I mean, you know, they go to Sabbath school, they serve as a deacon, as an elder, as a superintendent. I don't know what you do. You help out, and then while you're helping out during a work day, bayanihan, me, stuff, you know. Where are those officers? I'm the only one doing this, you know. Start doing that, you're not helping yourself. You're lost inside the house. Yes.
How do you help them? Because you
Psychiatric
find
help,
people
joyful.
inside a church like that. How do you make them like joyful in serving the Lord?
They have to have
You
the
cannot.
psychological.
This is really cool. I like your question, Cleo, because this like sets up. The answer is here on the board. Look for the answer on the board. It's right here. If you were listening when we started this. How do you help those guys who are joyless?
So you go back to the relational.
Yes. Start exploring. One speaker in Andrew says, reframe. There's a term, a psychological term today called reframe. You know what the reframe? I'll give you an example. And a husband and a wife, they always look at each other every day as enemies. Right? Is this common? Okay, okay. Don't answer me, okay? A lot of people in the church, have homes where the husband and the wife look at each other as mortal enemies, right? I come back from, do you have any food? I've been busy all day cleaning the house, you know. I've been busy at work. They start banging at each other. It's a joyless kind of life. How do you do it? Establish a conversation. Hey bro, hey dude, why don't you reframe? That's what they call it. There's a psychological term. You know what the reframe? Do not picture your spouse as an enemy. Picture your spouse as a friend. Okay, what do you do then? You don't go up and say, is there any food? He goes, how you doing, honey? Man, I'm so glad I'm home. Now you see there's already joy. But we're
No, that's already full.
yeah, but that's where, you know, that's where, I mean, that's why I like Gary Comer. He gives you some suggestions how to do that. But yes, for those joyless people, conversations can help. I'm telling you, conversations can help for the clueless, the directionless, the shameless, and the joyless. If you have the right conversations and the tools, you can lead them to God. That's what the lesson is about. That's why this is the power of relational evangelism.
How about influence can play part in it?
Oh yeah, it will. You know, if our way. Remember the story about this woman who wanted to divorce her husband? I couldn't stand him anymore. That's it. I want out of this marriage. The woman said, and then the psychologist said, you know what would be really good? Why don't you treat him really nice? No, really, treat him like a king. And after you treat him like a king, when you have a divorce, it will really pain him. You know, he'll set him up a moment. You know, when he's enjoying your life, then you're gonna go. He said, I want a divorce now. I mean, he's gonna kill him. Yeah, that's really cool. That's what you do. So what did the wife do? Started serving the husband like crazy to inflict pain in the end. You know what happened? There was never a divorce because she refrained. Another story. The guy wanted to sell his house, right? You heard about this. He wanted to sell his house. Let me offload my house. You know, I want to buy another house. And then the realtor said, the friend realtor said, hey, can you describe the house of your dreams? Started listing all the features of the house. Hey, all the features are in this house. Oh, I like my house. You know what I'm trying to say? Refrain. A lot of those who are clueless, who are joyless, needs another perspective. And that doesn't come and saying, you dummy! How stupid can you be? You said you should, they will not listen to you. They'll shut you down. But you start conversation, dude. Let's look at it this way. What do you think? When you have a relationship, you do that, man, they will start having a clue. They will have directions, right? They will begin to establish joy. And they'll come back and they will feel a sense of shame. We'll go there. But that's why I started with this. A lot of this missional approach will be helped by this. So it's not a matter, oh, they did not decide. pour them, they're going to go straight to hell. No. That's not the way to do missions. The way to do missions, establish relationships, and do this. And that's the way. Like Ruth is saying, that's a quote from Ellen White. The only method that's going to work is the method of Jesus Christ. He mingled with people. And what? And ministered to their needs. That's the way to do it. Don't you tell me that the hardest friend that you have will not respond to you if he's hurting and you're there for him or for her. They will. And one of the series of lessons, when you take the series of lessons, is for you to be sensitive to those needs. There are different needs of people, and as soon as you become sensitive to those needs, make sure you're available to answer that need for that person. And like Ruth was saying, Ellen White says that that's the only method that works, and if it works, it's very effective because you mingled, have a relationship, and you actively minister to the person. How do they find joy? They will only find joy in Jesus Christ, but sometimes it takes conversations from us to make them understand where the joy is.
How do you apply this in the Muslim culture? In the Middle East, Syria and Iraq, Afghanistan. For Christians, they profess to be Christians, they can be killed.
It's very difficult, if not impossible. That's why what is the primary method of God reaching out to Muslims today? Have you heard? Visions. Yes, visions. Because the methods that we use in America, in a free country, cannot be employed there. That's why a lot of them are directionless. A lot of them are lost. Okay, but they have only one TV station. And what is being shown in the TV station? The viewpoint of the government. They have no viewpoint as to what's going on. Unlike us, we are inundated by information overload. We know all the left and right side of us. Here, they're saying, I'm listening to the interviews with some people in the Middle East. Only one TV station. Only one opinion. They don't even know what's going on in America. That's why God has to reach them in another place. I'm so glad that
what they said is, we cannot go to Muslim world, but we invite the Muslim come to this.
Sure. They're saying, how many of you listen to Moody? There's the most recent advertisement in Moody which I really like. There were two Muslims. Well, there was one converted to Christianity. The other was still pursuing graduate studies here in America. And then the guy pursuing Islamic studies said, "Hey, one of these days I will turn you into an Islamic believer." That's his friend. And the friend looks him in the eye and said, "Yes, I will convert to the Muslim faith, to the Islamic faith, if you will show me in your book that Allah loves me." You heard that, right? And he read in his academic expertise as an Islamic scholar. He read through the Quran and he couldn't find any word in the Quran that tells you that Allah loves you. Allah will make you die for him. Allah will make you follow him, but it doesn't say that Allah loves you. And he turns around and says, "Well, my holy book says that God loves you." Very simple. But that work in America. That may not work. Yeah, I shared this with the Chicago Fil-Am this morning. Do you realize that there's a lot of Christians in the Middle East who, whenever they wake up in the morning, are not so sure whether that's their last day on earth or not? Whether a bomb will explode or they'll be arrested, they'll be dragged. That's the kind of life they live over there.
500,000 Christians die every year.
Yeah, and every minute, I forgot the statistics. I tell you, Voice of the Martyrs tell you how many people die. Even now, when we're talking, a lot of people die.
How many born too also.
Yeah.
This morning, Dwight Nelson is saying
and the neat thing though is, you know what happens when people die for the Lord? They do not die joylessly. They sing. How in the world can you sing when you're being put to death? Because you live for something outside of this world. You live for God. That in itself is a very big Christian witness. In fact, what did the Caesar say? You know what? Let's burn the Christians. Let's shed this blood. Let's slaughter the Christians, and we will wipe out Christianity out of this world. What they did not realize is the the law of spiritual thermodynamics. You know what that means? The more the heat, the more it expands. The more you apply fire and heat to the church, the more the church expands. Isn't it true? And I remember our neighbor when I was still growing up in Baisa. My neighbor who didn't believe in God at all said, "You know what? When I see you being persecuted one of these days and you're dying for God, maybe I will start believing in your God." Which is true. Well, you wonder why there's a lot of believers in China and Korea and a lot of people where there's persecution, because a quick way to awaken the sensitivity of people is when people are willing to die for a cause. And if that cause is Christ, all of this will be done. All right. I think I offloaded a ton of stuff to you this afternoon, but do you see how all of this gels together? Yeah, I don't think we have covered any type of person that needs to be reached out to outside of this. All of them belong here. And what we're just trying to say, and I agree with Gary Comer, if we become innovative in our evangelistic and missional approach and follow the pattern of Jesus Christ, which is relational evangelism, we'll probably reach out to more people, and a lot more people will hear about the gospel. And we will see delight and joy. How does the parable end? It doesn't end. But I like to picture the end of the story. Jesus is saying, you hate the publicans, you hate the tax collectors, you Pharisees. But you know what? When one of your sheep is lost and you go out and you find that sheep, what happens to you? You're overjoyed, you're so happy. He was looking at the eye of the Pharisees and telling the scribes and the Pharisees, you know what? That sheep that gives you joy when it's returned home is the same joy that I feel together with heaven, and you should feel when a lost sinner comes back home. You see how powerful that illustration of Jesus is? That's why he's a very, very good communicator. He uses the common language, but again, in being able to use the language, he used the relational approach and make people come to a decision for Jesus Christ.
If the lamb is dumb, why is it that Jesus Christ is depicted as lamb?
Oh, God.
He cannot be dumb.
Well, he cannot be man either, right? He's God.
Oh, he is both man and God.
Yeah, he cannot die either. He's God, right?
So what I'm saying is the lamb is not.
Yes, it's the
No,
same
it doesn't
parable.
say the lamb, it says the sheep is dumb. It's an evolution.
Okay.
It's just saying that his humility.
You are
that's all.
born smart and you become dumb.
Yeah.
The more you study, the more you get dumb.
You should also say, why in the world is a baby supposed to save the world not born in the palace? Why in the world does a baby need to be born in a manger? Why in the world should a baby have first visitors as the outcasts of society? The lowliest of all the workers happens to be shepherds. Why not royalty? Did not come till he becomes
There's
a
an answer
father.
to that. Why Jesus born in manger? The manger is a place where the cows eat. Mang, right? Mandibal, right?
Yeah, okay.
Mang. Jesus Christ is the bread of life. It pointed to his being the bread of life.
That's really
That
cool.
manger pointed.
You know, I didn't realize Benny wants to be a preacher. That's what you call reading into the Bible. That I see Jesus. Okay, but basically, yes. The question is why did Jesus choose the lamb? Because the lamb is the meekest. By meekest, instead of dumb, they call it dumbest. It's the meekest because it doesn't say anything. The shearers take away the.
Because when you kill the sheep,
Yeah.
it cries.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It doesn't. You know.
No, it doesn't make noise.
It doesn't make
No,
noise.
it
Yeah, sure,
cries.
sure. But it doesn't. It doesn't. You know, no word came out of his
Try
mouth.
to kill a pig and try to kill a lamb. You'll see the difference.
That's a good illustration. I like that. Okay, nobody's calling pig here, but
Even the goat,
right. Yeah, but I'm saying the bottom line is that the good news of salvation is that Jesus had to be like man. What is that model? The model is to mingle with everyone. What does that mean? Establish relationship and mingle, make conversation. And the moment you make conversation, lift them up. And once you lift them up, they will learn who Jesus is. Let's just repeat. Step in. by inviting. Step on, get involved. Step up, grow. Step out and inspire other people when you follow that. How do you do it? By relational evangelism. You build, okay? Establish relationship, have conversations, get decisions so that people will believe, they will eventually belong, and they will become disciples themselves. We cannot cover this even in 4 or 5 sessions, but these are the bird's eye view. Hopefully the example of Jesus in the parables in Luke 15 allows you to understand that Jesus' method can reach out to all of these types of people effectively for the gospel of Jesus Christ. All right?
Okay.
All right, let's bow our heads and prayers. We end. Dear Father, thank you for this very productive discussion we had. There are so many truths, so practical things we can do in our study this afternoon. Oh, just teach us, dear Father, to be willing to be led by the Spirit, to practice them in our lives. And may our life in our church be missional in every aspect. Missional in the sense that we will reach out to people so that God can transform them, not for our sake, but only for the glory of His name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.